achieved.
Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, it is me, your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we are taking a look at UFC on Fox 11. I had to pause there for a moment because we have had so many MMA events rammed down our throats. It's been ridiculous. This is the third event we'll have in a 9-day span, and fourth in just a little over 2 weeks. So obviously, I've been a very busy guy trying to put these predictions together. I'm taping this the day before the Tough Nations Ultimate Fighter finale, so I don't know how that plays out yet. I have my main card predictions done, obviously, getting ready for this. And I have 9 preliminary predictions ahead of me I have to put together between now and, hopefully Friday, and that leaves me Friday to go batshit crazy and try and get the bet pack in so you guys can buy it and hopefully make money along with me. Either way, the bet pack didn't do bad. I picked up some decent wins, including the last event with Roy Nelson by knockout, Clay Guida by decision. I did well with those. Obviously, again, the Tough Nations bet pack is posted. I don't know how it did. Hopefully, it was successful. Either way, there are 4 preliminary or main card fights I'm breaking down here. My 9 preliminary predictions will be at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I hope to put a bet pack out. I haven't been able to change the polls just because there's not enough time between events to get them updated, and usually I don't get a lot of people voting on them. There's only 3 or 4 days. I will try to get back to normalcy for the next event. Either way, it's a great time when you're an MMA fan, and nothing beats having MMA so frequently. It's the preparation, the time going into it, leading up to it. And I'll tell you this much, these 4 fights of this main card were incredibly difficult to break down. Very evenly matched bouts. Really could go either way. So, hey, speaking of fighting and predicting, let's get to the first fight. In the opening fight of the night, we take a look at the UFC's middleweight divisions. The number 13th ranked Brad Tavares, 12-2-0, battles the number 14th ranked Soldier of God, Yoel Romero, who carries a 7-1-0 record into the contest. Now, both guys last fought on the Rockhold versus Philippou card, so both guys had the same amount of time between bouts, so nothing to discuss there. Yoel's 3-0 since joining the UFC, all wins coming by way of stoppage. Well, Tavares has won 5 consecutive bouts and is 7-1 so far in the promotion. That's pretty darn impressive. Now, the edge in total fights does go to Brad Tavares at 13-8, but Romero is significantly older with 10 years Tavares is senior at 36-26, and he's starting his MMA career very late in life. And, you wonder what his ceiling is as far as that is concerned. Nonetheless, he doesn't have the miles on him. Hopefully that will help him go a little bit longer than the average fighter. Now, Romero's an Olympic wrestler, and he's been working to improve his striking, which is certainly showing up in the cage. Tavares, on the other hand, very young. He's developing nicely in all stages of the sport. You can really see that Muay Thai background, or at least that Muay Thai technique coming out in his attack. Now, Romero, despite having that wrestling background, he doesn't use it that much. In his 3 fights, he's 0-for-6 on takedowns, so he hasn't completed a single takedown, and a lot of the takedown attempts are kind of half-hearted, not fully committed, and he just has not been successful. That's what it comes down to. Now, he's more simply put, he's more interested in striking. His defensive wrestling, on the other hand, that's been kind of an issue. It's caught a lot of people off guard. He's been taken down several times in his UFC run, and he doesn't do a ton off his back. We saw Hani March take him down twice. Derek Brunson took him down 3 times and had some success. I believe Brunson mounted him and had him in some trouble in that fight. He was eventually able to get back up. Nonetheless, that's something you don't expect to see from a world-class wrestler. Now, Tavares, he doesn't have that wrestling background, but he's shown some serviceable grappling skills, and again, they're improving. He did land 2 takedowns against Lorenz Larkin. He used 5 against Tom Watson, and I wouldn't be surprised if he caught Romero with a takedown, got him coming forward, and put him on his back, but at the same time, Romero, as he goes further in his MMA career, should kind of adapt his wrestling skills and become more defensively sound. Now, for my money, this fight should be mainly contested on the feet. Romero is a very calm and cool striker, almost to a fault. We'll discuss that in a moment. He's unorthodox in his attacks. He likes to change his speeds, and he does it, very effectively. He'll lull a guy into a pace that they think, he's going to attack at, and then really pick it up and really push the pace for a couple attacks and catch them off guard with his speed. He doesn't work in an overly fast pace consistently. Again, he likes to change gears. He has decent hands, solid kicks. He likes to throw his jumping knees. We saw him knock out Clifford Starks with one. And he can attack very quickly when he does engage. He averages 4.0 strikes landed per minute versus 2.09 strikes absorbed, so a good transaction there. But I think those numbers have been bolstered by some late one-sided blitzes we saw against Brunson that were unanswered, a little bit against Marks as well. Now, Tavares, he's a much more traditional fighter with a Muay Thai technique. He keeps his hands up, he throws some very hard leg kicks, some solid combinations, and he consistently outlands his opponents so far, at least in his career. Now, he seemed a little bit hesitant to engage Bubba McDaniels, potentially out of fear of being taken down, and that's something, I don't know if that'll be as big an issue here, because he knows Romero isn't known for putting guys on their back in the cage. Now, Romero seems a little bit too relaxed for my in my opinion at times. He just seems to be too calm, cool, and collected. He was getting outworked by Derek Brunson early in that bout, and Tavares is a more technical striker than both guys like Brunson who had success, and more technical than Romero. Tavares coming off a very big win over a very good striker in Lorenz Larkin. He beat him in his own game. He landed better shots more consistently. And that's something we're seeing improvements in this kid, and I expect to see more here. Romero's chin is a question, but it did hold up against a massive kick from Brunson, but he has been knocked out, and that was against Rafael at 205. His cardio is also a major question mark, but we've seen him stop a couple fights very late recently, so that shows that maybe his cardio is improving. In his last two bouts, he's had to rely on late rallies. He was winning the Hani Marks fight, but he certainly was not winning the Derek Brunson matchup. He had to rely on a late rally to pick up the win there. He's beaten two average and still developing strikers with poor cardio, as far as I can see, as far as I evaluate those two guys. I don't think Tavares is going to fade in this fight. I think the combination of his movement and technique will just simply get the better of the action, get the better of the exchanges. He needs to watch that big shot, but my prediction is Brad Tavares to defeat Yoel Romero by decision. We move right along into the UFC's lightweight divisions. Number 8th ranked Donald Cowboy Cerrone, 22-6-0 with 1 no contest, but also number 11th ranked Edson Jr. Barboza with a record of 13 wins and just a single loss. Now for Barboza, this is the first fight he's faced against a top-ranked opponent. Cerrone, he's trying to make another run at the title. He's looking for his third win in 4 fights. His only loss coming against Rafael, which certainly knocked him out a peg. He needs this victory, to say the least. Now, we have 2 very good Muay Thai-based strikers. Both guys have power. Barboza with 8 knockouts, and Cerrone just has the 3, but the power is there. We've seen it several times. Cerrone's going to be the slightly taller fighter. Barboza will have a slightly longer reach, so I'd say that physically they're fairly well matched. Now, the fight could go to the mat. Let's be honest, it could happen. Most likely that would be from Donald Cerrone. Barboza has used some takedowns in the past, but Cerrone's trying to diversify and use a little bit more wrestling. He's very good on the ground, has some very good grappling, very good submissions, and that's an option he could look to utilize in this bout, but I would anticipate we're going to see a lot of striking here. Because Barboza, 83% takedown defense. He's a tough guy to take down. Not impossible, but certainly difficult. So one thing with Cerrone, he's been a very slow starter in the past. And Edson, on the other hand, he's also had a few slower starts. We saw him against Anthony Njokuani take a little bit to get wound up in that bout. So the key for both these guys, get going right away, get your combinations in, land some good strikes, and get in your groove as quickly as possible and gain some momentum. Strikes landed per minute, both guys come in around 4. Strikes absorbed per minute, both guys come in around 3.5. So both guys hit a lot, and both guys can be hit. So we're going to see some damage pile up on both individuals. Each man also has target zones that their opponents will look at as points of weakness that they want to capitalize. For Cerrone, it's the body. He had that motorcycle accident a number of years ago that's certainly damaged his body. We saw Anthony Pettis go to the midsection to take him out in that matchup, and that's something that I think Barboza will be looking to utilize with his kicks and his body shots. For Barboza, his chin. He was stopped by Jamie Varner. He was hurt by Danny Castillo, and that's a big thing. Cowboy, though, was also hurt. Melvin Guillard caught him in the chin and hurt him, and Rafael dos Anjos dropped him as well with a big shot to the chin. But either way, it's not like these guys are made of stone. They certainly have points of vulnerability on them. Cowboy, he struggles from, when you look at his past performance, he struggles when he's forced to go backwards. Dos Anjos had success doing that. Nate Diaz had a ton of success doing that, and that's something I think Barboza should focus on doing. But at the same time, Ross Pearson, Jamie Varner, Anthony Njokuani all had success being aggressive with Edson Barboza. Barboza doesn't like being pressured. He likes to be allowed to set up his strikes and attack methodically, and that's something those guys did not get. So we'll see which guy takes that forward push more often. Cerrone can fight at range, which I actually think favors Barboza a little bit, or at least plays more into his game plan. But Cerrone can also move forward, be aggressive, and try and get in close and land some short strikes and those stepping knees, which are beautiful attacks. Both guys have a ton of weapons. Barboza has those very vicious hard low kicks, a variety of spinning attacks that he's allowed to throw. But he was getting out quick by the hands of Anthony Njokuani, and again, that's something, a fighter I really focus on breaking this down. That's something you'll have to watch here to see who's the quicker fighter. I think it would be Barboza, but Cerrone is no slouch in that department either. Cowboy, he has very good kicks as well. He likes to throw those head kicks, which we saw him take out Melvin Guillard and more recently Adriano Martins. We also saw him catch Tennessee with a very nice switch kick, and as I said, he has those brutal stepping knees, which he can really do damage with when he gets in close. Cerrone's his hands are solid. He has some success when he uses his hands. We saw him hurt and drop Melvin Guillard with some shots to the face in the end. And I think he works in combination with his kicks fairly successfully. Now, Barboza has looked very good with his striking, but he's done it against a lot of wrestlers and lesser striking-based fighters like Danny Castillo, like Mike Lulo, like Rafael Oliveira. When he's faced with more competent strikers like Njokuani, like Ross Pearson, Jamie Varner, and even Terry Edom, the fights have been much closer. He doesn't look nearly as dominant. He still look good, but it's not like a runaway like you would expect it to be. Cerrone mentally is a major issue, but he seems motivated, back into his comfort zone, and he realizes this is a very important fight for him. He did struggle with the pressure of guys like Nate Diaz and Rafael dos Anjos, had to mix in takedowns, which really isn't Barboza's style. Barboza's not going to come forward aggressively. He's going to look to stand and exchange and not walk Cerrone down. This could really be Cerrone's last chance to get a shot at the title, or at least remain in the title picture. I think he recognizes that. I think he comes out and looks good. I think he'll land one at some point in this bout. So my prediction is Donald Cowboy Cerrone to defeat Edson Barboza by TKO. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's women's bantamweight division as number 3 ranked Miesha Cupcake Tate, a former UFC title challenger and Strikeforce champion with a record of 13-5-0, battles the number 7th ranked former title challenger Liz Gorilla Carmouche with a record of 8 wins and just 4 losses. Now both women have lost to Ronda Rousey in pursuit of the title. Miesha Tate twice. Carmouche came very close actually to pulling off the upset in the first women's fight in the history of the UFC, locking in that rear naked choke, and she really had it. She had it right tight across Ronda's face. A lot of people were thinking this could be it. This is a very important fight because neither girl's probably going to get a shot, especially Miesha, not going to get a shot in the near future. They need to maintain their positions in the division, and the win here will go a long way to doing that. Now, Carmouche, she nearly won the Strikeforce title back in the day against Marloes Coenen, but got subbed late in that bout. And it was interesting because Miesha Tate came the next fight and used a very similar game plan and took the title against Marloes, using a lot of top control and eventually submitting her. So, a little bit of background. They've never crossed paths before in the cage, but certainly they've been around each other. Now, both come from wrestling backgrounds, and Liz is a BJJ blue belt. So this fight very well could spend some time on the ground. Tate 6-2 in fights ended by submission. Both her losses, well accounted for with Ronda Rousey. Carmouche 2-2 again, submitted by Marloes Coenen and Ronda Rousey. So the girls that had submitted these women, were very good athletes and championship caliber fighters. Now Tate 3.24 takedowns at a 40% range, so pretty good wrestling. And she has used it effectively. We saw her land 3 takedowns against Kat Zingano, 2 against Julie Kedzie, and again the aforementioned Marloes Coenen. She took her down 4 times. She has good top control, and she's hard to get out of that top position once she gets the fight to the floor. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now for Carmouche, she's incredibly strong, especially for when she gets on top. Her number's not quite as high, 2.32 takedowns, but at 44%, so she can certainly take the fight to the ground as well. We saw her overwhelm a very strong Jessica Andrade in Andrade's debut. She put her on the mat 3 times early in that fight and eventually finished it with some solid ground and pound from top position. Against Alexis Davis, she took Davis down, but she couldn't get her wrestling game going with consistency, and that's what prevented her from having a lot of success there, as she was taken out of her comfort zone. The wrestling skills, though, could cancel each other out and lead to a striking battle, which is something we could very well see. We saw Miesha Tate. She struggled against Julie Kedzie in her final Strikeforce appearance. She was smashed on the feet by Kat Zingano and late in that fight, and she really hasn't looked that good striking in a while. Against Ronda Rousey, she landed some okay shots, but, where's Ronda at as far as striking is concerned? I'm still not sold. Carmouche, she's still working around at her striking, but size, she has a sizable work rate advantage, 4.1 strikes landed per minute to just 1.64 for Miesha. Carmouche gets hit at a rate of 3.2 strikes per minute, but she usually outworks her opponents. Well, Miesha Tate, 2.8 strikes per minute, so she gives up almost a ratio of 2 to 1. Her opponent hits her twice for every 1 strike she gets in. That's not something you want to be doing unless you're stopping opponents, a la Roy Nelson, who usually gets outstruck almost 5 to 1. Now, Miesha, she has struggled of late overall in her appearances. She has not put together a complete fight in quite a while, basically going back to the Marloes Coenen victory in 2011. Her only win was a come-from-behind submission win over Julie Kedzie, and she's nearly got stopped several times in that fight. For Liz Carmouche, her power and work rate, I think, will show up against a fighter who, was successful at one point in the fight game, but I really feel the fight game's kind of left Miesha Tate behind. It's past her skill set on. I think Liz Carmouche is still hungry. Miesha seems a little she's still there, but she was even non-committal before Strikeforce was dissolved and came into the UFC. Either way, I think Liz Carmouche gets the better of the action here in what could be a very close fight. My prediction is Liz Carmouche to defeat Miesha Tate by decision. In the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's heavyweight division in a fight that I'm not saying it was easy to break down, but I felt I had the better edge as far as compared to the other 3 fights on the main card. We have the number 2 ranked Fabricio Werdum, 17-5-1, taking on number 3 ranked Travis Hoppa Browne, 16-1-1. And the winner of this fight will be getting a shot, or should be getting a shot at Cain Velasquez. And they've both climbed the ranks fairly successfully with a good run in their respective portions of the division and are climbing up now to meet each other. And unless Uncle Dana decides to go all haywire and do something, which is a likely possibility, the winner of this should be in line to get a shot at Cain when he comes back from injury. Physically speaking, Browne's a big man, 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage over Fabricio, and we get a lot of that in the heavyweight division. Browne, he's a striker. versus Werdum, who's a very good ground fighter, but he's also improved his striking significantly to the point where he's dangerous on the feet. Now, Fabricio, he's a black belt in judo and a second-degree black belt in BJJ, which, he's, to say the least, he's one of the, if not the most dangerous guy in the mat, one of the most, maybe Frank Mir's right there with him. Either way, 9 submission wins overall, and he's tapped out some pretty impressive names like Fedor and Alex Emelianenko. He also he's coming off with a submission win over Big Nog, which is a huge accomplishment in itself. He also got Alistair Overeem back in Pride. He submitted him. Wrestling, though, he's not that strong. 1.98 takedowns at 34%. Not a great wrestler, but he can get to the fight to the mat, and he has done that in the past. Just not, the typical ways you would see a wrestler use a power double to put his opponent down. We saw in the Alistair Overeem fight, he continually pulled guard, fake getting hurt and dropping to his back, and prayed for Alistair to fall into the mat. Against Fedor, he was able to successfully catch Fedor after getting dropped as he followed him down. So those are some of the ways he's had success there. He did take Nogueira down once and took Bigfoot down 3 times, so it's not like it's impossible for him to take guys down, but it's not something he does with regular success. Now, if Browne gets over anxious, he could fall right into a submission, and that's something Verdum's going to be looking forward to, and Browne will have to watch. He needs to be very careful, especially if Browne lands a big shot on the feet, and Verdum is not as hurt as he would appear to be. He will be looking to catch him a la Fedor when he comes forward. Now, Browne is a BJJ purple belt, but nowhere near good enough to go on the offensive against, especially against the offensive guard of Fabricio Werdum, who's very good off his back, and as I said, more than willing to go there. Now, Browne's grappling attack, it needs to be 100% defensive, at least at first. His takedown defense so far 100%, and he has stoppage wins over Gabriel Gonzaga and Josh Barnett, 2 very good grapplers who were attempting takedowns, and we saw him land those elbows. He sprawled up against the cage, established an underhook, and started dropping those elbows, and his opponent eventually went out. And that's something that, could we see again? It's a possibility. Were they illegal? The referees deemed them no. He said they were not 12-6 elbows. So might as well go for it again, and that's something we could see if Werdum commits on a takedown and can't get it initially. Expect to see Browne start unloading. Now, Browne has to keep this fight standing. He has 12 wins by knockout, and his 1 knockout loss came against Bigfoot Silva, again as a result of the bum knee, which is well documented. He throws a variety of kicks, good combinations. He's very quick and uses a lot of movement for a heavyweight. He's a bit of a, he's unorthodox on his feet, and he's very fast, which can catch a lot of guys off guard. Now, both fighters, for the most part, right just under the 3 strikes landed per minute. Browne does get hit at a bad rate of 3.1 strikes absorbed, so he does take a little more damage than he dishes out, but he has a good power exchange as far as the damage he can do. Werdum, a much better rate, only getting tagged at about 1.86 strikes landed per minute, so he does shut his opponents down far more effectively. Now, Werdum has come a long way to improve his striking. He's Muay Thai based. He throws solid punches in combination, nice kicks, and he has some very good clinch work. We saw him bust up Roy Nelson with some solid knees and elbow strikes in close. His cardio has been an issue, not so much against Nelson, but he looked a little bit tired against Big Nog, but having rewatched that fight a couple of times, it was fairly high-paced on the mat. Werdum does have 5 knockouts, mostly are ground-based, though. We saw him stop Gabriel Gonzaga once in the UFC and once prior in their career on the mat, also against Brandon Vera, but he did take out Mike Russell with some big shots and eventually finished him there. His 1 knockout loss came against a very young and underdog Junior Dos Santos via uppercut way back in the day. But what this fight breaks down to is Werdum, he should be able to win this bout if it goes to the ground. For Browne, it's not nearly as clear-cut if he keeps his fight standing, but that's where his advantage lies, as Werdum is much better on the mat than Browne is. Werdum is much better on the feet than Browne would be on the mat, but I still feel Browne has a significant advantage on the feet and will be able to exploit it. Usually I favor the more multifaceted fighter, in that case would be Fabricio Werdum with his ground and striking skills, but from the way I look at it, Browne is too big, he's too quick, and he hits too hard, so my prediction is Travis Browne to defeat Fabricio Werdum by TKO and go on to challenge Cain Velasquez for the UFC's heavyweight title. So I thank you guys as always for tuning in. That was my 4 main card predictions for the UFC on Fox 11 event, which will take place this Saturday. I still have my preliminary predictions to break down, which will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Hopefully I have a fantastic night tomorrow night at UFC's Ultimate Fighter Nations finale, which should be good in Quebec, Canada, so my home country. We have another big UFC event not to the following weekend after this event. So we've got a ton of events coming up, and again, my predictions, at least my online predictions, will be a little bit shorter, just so I can make sure I get them all in. There's a lot of new debuting fighters in this card, in the undercard, so I got to put a lot of extra work in to figure out what these guys are all about and see what I can determine. Either way, as I said, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you back here like in 5 minutes probably, or don't go anywhere because there's another fight to break down. Probably Dana will schedule something between now and Saturday.